summertime. Time to load up the family truckster and hit the road for vacation.
We're going to come up with some reasons why you should just stay home.
Some of our best, our favorite horror movies that have to do with hitting the road for vacation, for business. That is the theme this week. Welcome. This is the Fright Club Podcast.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we're from madwolf.com. And first of all, obviously, just a huge thank you last week. We had a ball with, and I'm sure it showed, with Fritz the Night Owl and Mike McGrainer.
They were so great to come
awesome
out
was
here.
that?
Oh my God, it was very exciting. And they brought me a poster, and we forgot to get him to sign it. We got all the way home. We're like, I can't believe we didn't ask Fritz the Night Owl to sign this poster.
Well, that's just, it's a great, motivation for going out to his next event.
That's
Seriously.
Right. No, yeah.
And getting it signed.
Which is Jurassic Park, right? The next one they're going to do is Jurassic Park.
At the Gateway. And Gateway Film Center here in Columbus, where we are based. And it was so great of them to come because he's so legendary. And thank you for all the great feedback. People loved it. I mean,
of course.
It's so funny because I think he still sometimes downplays and doesn't realize the effect he has on people.
Oh, yeah.
He talked about how early on he was afraid these events, nobody would show up.
Right.
And it's just one of those deals where it's charming. He's such a great guy. And it was great for them to come in and talk about, the early days of getting started and then up to now and some of his favorite midnight movies since they've started this all over again. And it's going great. And they have, as I think if you listen to the podcast, they have some very big plans in the works that he couldn't come quite out and say. But I think you probably got the idea of what's coming. And it's going to be huge, huge. So, yeah, thanks to Fritz. Thanks to Mike. It was great. And thanks for all the feedback. So, and we also have, as we said last week, we've opened up the voting, I guess you could say.
That's right.
For a really exciting show that we have coming up.
2 weeks. In about 2 weeks, we're going to do one, the 5 scenes you got to turn away from. So that's what we're, just remind us of some. What, and we've already gotten,
man.
Thanks to Bridget, who's really drumming up support for this, which
Facebook.
is awesome.
Yeah.
And we got some great ones. And then one of the ones that I really love, and I don't know that it'll make the list, but it's a great scene is that Craig from Screen Relish pointed out the hobbling in Misery. What a great scene.
It's a great scene, yeah.
I mean, if you keep your eyes open the whole time, my hat's off to you because I know I close my eyes every time.
I think this might be one of the toughest to narrow down to 5. I mean, we've already, every time I see somebody submit
something,
and I go, yes!
I can't look at. Well, you know what else? Here's what I think. This is the stupidest thing we've ever done because we're just going to spend the next 2 weeks watching nothing but stuff that we don't want to watch since that's the point. It's just masochism. This whole thing is just masochism. I know.
To try to get through this. But there are some great ones. So many great ones. And it also depends. I forget who, and I apologize, whoever submitted this on Facebook, talking about dental horror. Yeah. Because certain things appeal in that way to different people that maybe they wouldn't be as terrifying to other people.
Another one, people have brought up different pregnancy horrors.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know how uncomfortable that is for the whole audience. I know how uncomfortable it is for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
It should be an interesting show. It should not be fun to put together.
I can already tell it's going off in wildly different directions, and that's great.
Yeah.
Because once you get into dental horror, then you say, well, what about Marathon Man? Okay, great. That's not really a horror movie, but boy, that's horrific.
It is.
If you are affected by,
it's a tough
dental,
scene to watch, yeah.
Very tough, and it's multiple scenes. So, please keep those coming. Many ways to do it. You can find us on Facebook. We're Mad Wolf Columbus. Of course, Twitter is great. We're at Mad Wolf.
2 Ds.
MADDWOLF. And this is a fun conversation. So it's, as you say, it might not be fun to watch all these when you're talking about that, that turtle scene in Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
We've seen that. I don't think we're going to go back and see it again.
I'm not going to rewatch that. No.
Things like that. There are just a ton of them, and just keep them coming. They're great so far. Even going back to the original Straw Dogs, we had somebody, I think it was Adam, brought that up. That's one.
Yeah.
And so there's so many great ones to talk about, and that might.
Well, I don't. You know that. I just don't watch rape scenes.
Right.
I don't. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is those are very.
The thing, because they're very
so
hard to watch. They're very hard to watch,
so,
and usually I think, and he made the same point. They're done for gratuitous reasons in most films, but there are a handful where they're pivotal, they're important, and it's certainly horrific.
Yes. And of course that leads right into Irreversible and other films by Gaspar Noé, and then you just go off one after the other, and you can just keep riffing on them.
Yeah.
And there are so many good ones. So keep them coming. That's coming in 2 weeks.
Yep.
We're just going to put on our party hats and compile that list. But it should be pretty gruesome in a good way if that is possible. But yeah, it is summertime. It is vacation.
It is.
We're getting ready. We just booked the flights for ours here in August.
We're not driving.
We're not driving.
No, we're not driving. Not after this.
We're not driving.
No. But it's funny. Two things inspired this. One, we ran into a couple of regular podcast listeners, Adam and Claire Coughlin Lowe, and we were at a scary movie, of course, and ran into them there. And they mentioned that they usually listen to them, they gang them up and listen to them when they're on the road because they drive a lot together. I think to Chicago, they said, which is about a 6-hour trip from here. So they listen to them all on the road. And I thought to myself, well, let's scare them. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, right? My sister Joy and her family, they're taking a road trip. And right off, I'm like, oh, when are you going then? Because we'll just do it right now. We're going to do this right now. So this is specifically to scare Joy, Claire, and Adam.
It's just people helping people.
That's right.
That's what we're about.
That's right.
So road trip horror, perfect for vacation time. Let's start at number 5. I know Hope especially likes this one. It is The Hitcher.
When Jim Halsey let the Hitcher into his car, he opened the doors of hell.
What do you want?
I want you to stop me.
Is it wrong for me to just say that between this movie and Blade Runner, my crush on Rutger Hauer was really solidified?
It's funny. I think when we first started dating and I found out that was one of your crush guys, I'm like, really? I'm not used to hearing that one, but okay. But 1986, The Hitcher. And this one reminds me a lot of a movie that's going to be at number 4, which we're not going to talk about quite yet.
Right.
Little teaser there. But, it's on the road and a guy he makes the mistake. C. Thomas Howell makes the mistake of picking up the Hitcher, and then things just go wrong.
Oh, yeah. And C. Thomas Howell, not a giant talent, and doesn't show a great deal of talent in this film.
Are you forgetting Side Out?
I might be.
Miss. The volleyball movie?
Oh, no, I know the one you mean.
Thing?
I do.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I digress.
It's absolutely, this whole movie is absolutely Rutger Hauer's film. There's no question about it, but because he is so effortlessly sinister and psychotic, and those eyes, and you just know, oh my God, terrible things are going to happen. But it is really C. Thomas Howell's tremendously believable, just naive, stupid innocence.
Oh, yeah.
That makes it work. If he had just an ounce of cynicism or skepticism about him, well, he wouldn't have picked up a hitchhiker in the first place. It's like, but you need that to buy the whole movie, and it's really very important.
He's a young kid. He looks even younger.
Yeah.
And he uses that whole line about, my mom told me not to pick up hitchhikers. So you have that sort of, I'm going to be my own person kind of reason for doing it, which is a little bit believable. But you're right. He's totally naive to the whole thing. And
the other thing that I think really works in this movie's favor is that they go places you didn't think that they were going to go.
Which is always a plus. Usually.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I don't just mean the finger and the French fries, right? I mean, it's like they go dark places, and they, and Jennifer Jason Leigh it was not a good idea for her to take a shining to that C. Thomas Howell character. It's like, oh my God, what happens to Jennifer Jason Leigh in this movie? But it's, and in a lot of ways, it's not really a horror movie. It's really an action movie. There's a lot of gunplay, which is never fun in horror movies. I mean, there are a lot of things about it, but so it's got like 6 or 7 horror movie scenes, but when they do it, they're serious. They mean business. It gets dark.
But you're right. The whole thing is driven by Rutger Hauer. Without he drives the entire thing and makes it work.
Oh yeah.
And if you want to see another one like that, Hobo with a Shotgun.
Oh, of course.
I just thought of that just now. I'm like, talking about a movie that's driven by Rutger Hauer. How about
my God.
Hobo with a Shotgun?
I love that movie so much. I love him in it. Just a head full of bad wiring, that guy.
Yeah, loved it. But that's getting off on a little bit of a tangent because we also had a couple of others that fall into this sort of category.
Yeah, I think that pretty obviously Jeepers Creepers from 2001, and I think a lot of people are going to be irritated that it didn't make the list. And there's a lot.
It falls apart, though.
It does. There's a lot about it that's very, very, very good.
In the early going, it had me. It really did.
Yeah, but it just can't keep it. It can't sustain it.
Can't bring it home.
But I feel like that was that's got a lot of similar in-car tensions, and the in-car tensions really pay off well. It's later on. And there's, again, a lot of these are going to lead to our number 4 movie. There's a lot of similarities too, but there's another really weird one that this always reminded me of. It's an Australian movie called Road Games. Came out in 1981. Stacey Keach. I
don't know this one.
Stacey Keach and
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, Stacey Keach, Jamie Lee Curtis. And she's a hitchhiker. She's American. She's a hitchhiker. He's a truck driver, right? And there's some sort of meat shortage. It's all about meat. There's a guy, he's killing people. There's coolers. It's very carnagey, but it's also, a lot of Australian horror has a weird sense of humor about it. So it's also got a really weird sense of humor about it. And Stacey Keach, it's creepy. It's super creepy. It's also weirdly funny, and it's not a great film, but it's very interesting, and it reminds me a lot of this one, too. Yeah.
Yeah, that one, never heard of it till you brought it up.
Yeah.
Road Games from 1981.
Yeah.
Those kind of fall in line with the same theme as The Hitcher, and then you start those movies. I forget the name of the one with Kurt Russell, where the woman, I think it was Kathleen Quinlan, was
Black
his wife.
Dog?
No, that was the one with Meatloaf.
Meatloaf, yeah.
But no, where the truck driver takes her, and that's, that doesn't really. It's some of the same themes, but I wouldn't really qualify it as a horror movie.
No, nor
because there's plenty
really,
of those, I think. But these are ones that up there with the Hitcher, not as good, I don't think. But I'm with you on Jeepers Creepers. Started strong, couldn't really hold it till the very end. So that's a number 5 from 1986.
Yes.
Right, The Hitcher.
Yeah,
and the one that we were talking about that The Hitcher really reminds me of, especially because I saw this one as a young kid from 1971 called Duel.
Okay. You want to play games? Hey, stop!
It's kind of become somewhat of a cult classic over the years because it was directed by a 25-year-old Steven Spielberg.
Right.
He had very little. I think he had directed that famous episode of Night Gallery, was just about all he had. And then he did a string of 4 movies of the week, and this, I believe, was the first one. And I remember watching it and just being maybe not so much terrified, but just it was so tense. It was so tense. It stars Dennis Weaver, who his main claim to fame was the old TV show McCloud. And he's a traveling salesman on the road. And just out of nowhere, he has a little bit of a road incident. Nothing major, nothing really road rage about it, but with a big rig. And then starting from that point on, the driver of this big rig is just after him and will not let up, just terrorizing him until it reaches a climactic end, which I'm not going to spoil. But it's so tense, and one of the beautiful things about it, not only because you get a glimpse, no matter how old Spielberg was, how he handles the camera is great, and he realized that you mix your fear for this main character's life in with the fact that you never find out why he's being targeted. It drives you crazy. You barely see, you don't really see the truck driver's face. You see a silhouette here and there, but those two things coupled together just make it so tense, especially for a TV movie, although it did get some limited theatrical release after it came out because it was so effective. So it does count, I suppose, as a big screen movie, but it's really effective as type of that road horror.
And just really very spare, right? I mean, there's, it's just... Yeah. And in that way, kind of relentless.
Yeah, and it's smart in the way, he tries to get help. You think, well, if I was in that situation, I would do this. Mm-hmm. I would do this, and I would do this. And he does. He tries some certain things to try to get help, and they get out of that in some inventive ways. It was actually based on a short story, which the writer of it was inspired by an actual real-life event where he had a truck driver kind of mess with him on the road. Wow. Not to this extent,
I hope not.
But then he wrote the story about it, and it turned into this movie called Duel. Yeah, very small cast. Obviously, there are really only 2 main characters: the truck driver that you hardly ever see, and this salesman. But it's just one event after the other. How he thinks he's going to try to get out of it, and then there are moments where he thinks he has lost him. And it's like those classic horror movies where you see something in your rear view mirror.
Right.
Maybe it's headlights, maybe it's whatever, and then there's that truck again. Like Jeepers Creepers,
right?
Because that's a truck
exactly.
involved.
Yeah.
But so I'm not even. I didn't even look if you can find it. I'm sure you can find it. Maybe the whole thing's on YouTube
Probably.
now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you're not familiar, it goes back a ways.
It does.
1971.
The movie that this reminds me the most of, that people probably do remember, is Joyride, which I had forgotten J.J. Abrams wrote.
Really?
Right. So Joyride, you remember that one? Steve Zahn and Paul Walker and Lily Sobieski and a truck driver who just targets them. And my favorite part about it is that you just hear him. You just hear the voice, which is super great because it's Ted Levine, right? Buffalo Bill. It's that creepy voice, which just made the whole thing that much better. And it clearly was. And it's not as tense because it's not as limited or as spare as Duel, but it's a pretty decent movie, and it's clearly inspired by the movie Duel.
Yeah.
And then the other one, because the Duel is so 70s. The other one that is so 70s, and I kind of thought originally it was going to make the list, and I just couldn't do it. I rewatched it. I just couldn't do it. But it's definitely got to be mentioned, is Race with the Devil, right? The old Warren Oates, Peter Fonda, Loretta Schwitt, and it's so 70s because they've got a big mobile home, and they're going to take the mobile home out, and it's like the whole. It's like an ad for mobile homes, and you would know it was like 1977, I think, or 75 actually.
75, yeah.
Where, you remember, you would imagine, in 75, because they beat the living hell out of this mobile home, and the probably audience were just like, oh my, you know what I mean? Like the damage done to this $37,000. Right now, you're like, oh, great, it's a mobile home. But it's one of those just relentless. They can't get away. They're trying to get away. And it's also, Satanists, which is, I love such a weakness for that, big black masses and stuff. It's stupid. It's a stupid movie. But it's kind of a classic in its own 1970s sort of time stamp of a way, and it bears a strong resemblance, I think, to Duel.
Well, obviously there have been plenty of movies that take that premise and run with it, and with varying degrees of success. But boy, if you just want to go back to the bare bones, we're on the road, this car is chasing this car, and to the boom, and that's it, and that's all you need to know. Go back to Duel in 1971. But yeah, Joyride, I had no idea that was written by J.J. Abrams. That's interesting. But so check that one out, and then the other one, Race with the Devil from 1975. So that's number 4, big entry in the Steven Spielberg legend, Duel. And that's moving on to number 3. Whew, we're going to go back to the original, right? The original, The Hills Have Eyes.
Mister, don't take your family back in that area. The silver has been gone for 40 years now. Besides, there's nothing back in there but animals.
We're lost. The old creep told you not to get off the road.
What began as a vacation ended as a nightmare.
Hell to pay now.
The Hills Have Eyes. The lucky ones died first.
Yeah, from 1977, The Hills Have Eyes. Although the remake, would also obviously land on the list as well.
As good.
No, it's not as good, but it's the same basic premise, which is it's a mobile home. Again, it's a very 70s concept.
It is, but also the point you made about just a few minutes ago about going places you don't expect it to go.
Oh, my.
That really, really comes into play here.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Wes Craven made this. It was one of his earlier films, of course, and, and it's not a great movie. It really isn't. But one of the things that I've always said it does incredibly well. So the basic premise, right? The dad is in a mobile home. He's got all his kids with him. There's also a station wagon, and he decides he's going to take a shortcut through the Nevada desert, which is a stupid idea. But you can't talk any sense into your dad when he decides he's got a shortcut, and you're just going to be stuck with it.
Are you speaking from experience?
Maybe. So they camp out, and there's this inbred cannibal clan preys upon them. And the survivor has an Ohio State T-shirt on. So I think that's the important thing. That's the moral, everyone. But no, one of the reasons I think the film does work is I feel like Wes Craven's point was, early in the film, there's an infant in jeopardy, right? The cannibals steal the baby. They're going to eat the baby.
Yep.
And the audience, you got to think right then, is going, no way. They're going to save that baby. I'm not sitting there. No way they're going to eat this baby. But then scene after scene after scene after scene, you cannot believe where they take the movie. And I think the overall point was to convince you they might
They are. Exactly.
They might, like, this filmmaker might make me watch a movie where they eat a baby.
Exactly.
Like, you feel unsafe watching the movie, which is, I think, the reason that it merited a remake. I think it's the reason that it sticks with people, because it's certainly not the acting.
No.
But although also the other big main reason that this movie is as creepy and effective as it is
Michael Berryman.
Yeah.
The guy, you know, he just has a look.
Oh my God.
You know, especially when maybe he's always bald. But because I remember him in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he was one of the
his affliction.
He's got alopecia. Anyway, he just the way he looks. I'll tell you what, he made the most of it in movies. Because
he did.
Creepy. I remember just when I was a kid. I remember just the poster. And seeing that dude's face. You know, wow.
Yeah,
that's a creepy dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So and apparently from what you read, he was just the sweetest guy.
Yeah.
But he made an effective psycho.
He really did.
And that is so true. And it's so true about the point you make about the baby, because by the time he's done, you're unsure of everything you thought you were sure of.
Exactly.
And then all bets are off.
Right. Because bad things happen in this movie.
Yeah, they do.
Like really, really, really bad things happen in this movie.
Yeah.
And you know, the violence is really over the top and crazy. You know, and the remake. I mean, the remake is very popular. I didn't really care for it, but most people really, really did, and I can see a lot of merit to it. I don't like where it goes. But it has a much better cast, actually. And again, Ted Levine. Ted Levine plays the dad who won't listen to reason and decides he's going to go off into this desert. Bad things happen to that dad.
I think it has its moments. It's not as remember. It's not as memorable is what I'm trying to say as the first one. But as remakes go, I guess it's all right.
Yeah.
But definitely keep to the original. The Hills Have Eyes from 1977. Yeah, and Michael Berryman. That's
yeah.
One look at that guy, and you just know, man, I shouldn't have taken that wrong turn. And that's at number 3. So we've got some goodies for the top 2, and we've talked about this one numerous times with good reason. Number 2 is Wolf Creek.
What the bloody hell are you mob doing out here? Scared the shit out of me.
So, what do you actually do?
I can tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Let's play.
I think that Greg McLean, the filmmaker, noticed all of the American movies about getting lost out in the woods, out in the outback, and thought, you don't even know. You don't even know.
Yeah.
That's just what this movie was. It was like that, the whole sort of, that's not a knife kind of a thing. Like, Australia knows getting lost out in the outback.
Yeah.
And, oh, God.
And it's much as we spoke a little while ago about Rutger Hauer driving The Hitcher. This movie is so driven by
John Jarrett.
John Jarrett. What a great performance as the crazy man.
Oh, yeah.
And early on, he's so nice to the kids. And, if you're not familiar, the kids are off and the trip, a holiday,
right.
I guess you'd say. And they come to this weird spot that apparently just makes things stop working, like watches and car batteries and things like that. Well, wouldn't you know, old Mick is Johnny on the spot and ready to help.
With his tow truck. I'll just tow you back to camp.
Ready to help. And things go so bad for the kids after that. But it's all nicely foreshadowed early on. Remember when they stop, they go into a little cafe or something like that, and they get some bad treatment. They get some guy's mouth off, and he tries the boy of the group tries to act a little bit tough, and the looks on the guys' faces, and one of them is Mick.
Yeah,
that's the thing. He doesn't remember. One of them is Mick. That they're going to see these guys again, and they don't take too kindly to interlopers.
That's right.
But it's
wussy tourists.
Yeah, wussy tourists. And you find out, of course, that Mick has been doing this for a long time, and he's taken a lot of people back to his camp. And it's brutal. I mean, we talk about some of our brutal scenes. Head on a stick.
Oh my God, Head on a Stick.
It's so brutal, so much so that it got. I think you really can find even horror aficionados that don't like this movie.
No, it's often lumped in with the sort of horror porn movement, which I disagree with.
I do too.
I think one of the things that makes it as effective as it is that they really invest in the characters. These three kids, they're not just disposable dumbasses. You know, you can spend a good long time getting to know each of the three of them before they're in peril, so that you really don't want to see this happen to them.
Right, and it's not the old thing, oh, they're going to have sex and then they're going to get killed. No, it's not those things at all. You're right. They take some time for character development. You care about them. And it's also, it's so unsettling that this is actually based on, I don't think it's based on one true event, but maybe a few put together.
Right.
That there are actual, similar true events that if you look back and do some research, you can find some very, very unsettling stories. But it's I agree with you. I don't think it's horror porn at all. It's awful tough.
It is.
But
yeah, with John Jarrett, oh my God, he's
so good.
He is so just amiable and sadistic in equal measure. Oh my God, he's so creepy. He's so good in this movie.
Yeah, we loved it. And this this brings to mind another movie we've talked about a lot lately, and that is Calvaire.
Right. Where, your car breaks down and you turn to the wrong people to help you out.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a road trip exactly in the way that we're talking about, but it does, it is. It's the same.
In a way, the guy's a singer, his business, he's on the road traveling, so it's in that vein. Now, it's not nearly as brutal as Wolf Creek is.
I disagree.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
All right.
It's not as grisly, and there's certainly a lot more dark comedy about it.
Yes,
but
right.
I find it as punishing.
Do you?
I do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't.
Yeah.
But that's I'm certainly not saying you're wrong at all. I mean, it's very effective in a different way. But I don't find it punishing or brutal at all. But that's a good take on it.
Yeah.
But it falls in line with that type of movie. But number 2, Wolf Creek, we love it, and Calvaire, we love, obviously. If you've listened to any of these podcasts that we love. So that just leaves room at the top. Number 1, and it's Hope's favorite.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre!
This is the movie that is just as real, just as close,
Crazy! You gotta make us stop!
just as terrifying as being there. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
This is what I expect to happen every time I am ever in a car in the South by myself.
With a guy in a wheelchair when you pick up a crazy hitchhiker with blood on his face.
I love him, too, actually. I mean, Edwin Neal, who plays the hitchhiker. Leatherface gets all the love, and I'm cool with that. Leatherface was one of the greatest characters ever in horror cinema. But Edwin Neal as a hitchhiker, I don't think he gets enough love. He's the creepiest thing ever.
We have to post that picture with a picture of you with both Leatherface and Sally.
Oh, yeah, Gunnar Hansen and Marilyn Burns.
Met them at Horror Hound. They were so great.
They were so great.
And you got a picture with both of them together.
And I was a big stammering nerd, as I always am.
I'm sure, got that a lot. And, of course, Marilyn has passed away, unfortunately, since then. But she was extremely nice, and Gunnar Hansen was as well. Still cuts an imposing figure, that man. Yeah,
he does.
He really does.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was
cool.
super cool.
Yeah, but it's obviously maybe the standard bearer of these types of movies,
right? Because the kids are all they've heard of some grave robbing, and they go out to their grandpa's resting place to make sure he's still there, and they will find themselves back at the cemetery. But not too long, and of course, they stop for directions at the wrong gas station, and they're going to go look for property that was in their family for a long time, and it turns out there's some squatters there, and they're mean. They've got some interesting use for some of the rooms in the house.
And of course,
a lot of meat hooks.
Like so many of these movies, they're warned early on. Don't you go messing around. It's the same way in Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Some even remember Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's that type of.
Oh, yeah.
You always see it. Don't you whippersnappers go down there, and do all that stuff. So you have that, and this is really weird. But there's one moment in that movie that gets me, and I don't know why it is. It's when Leatherface comes out and grabs one of them, when he goes back in.
Gale, I think.
The door. Mm-hmm. When that door slams, it's such a heavy door, and it slams and shuts with such force. There's something about the way that door shuts, like it's never opening again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a moment in that movie that just always gets me, like, boom, this is done and shut, and you're not coming out.
No.
You know, it's just one of those that just gets you for some reason.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think it's the girl on a hook scene that most of us.
Yeah, I mean, but those have been talked about, and those are very famous. But you talk.
No, I think you're right. I've not really thought about it before, but it is very unsettling.
And this one also had a remake of a few years ago, Jessica Biel, that didn't.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Not a lot of people. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is actually a really good movie, and it's also got a lot of road trip going on and a big radio station bit. They're listening to the radio while they're on a road trip, and Dennis Hopper stars, and Tobe Hooper did direct the second one, and it's good, actually. It's not as good as the first one, but it's good. It's a good, super creepy movie.
Yeah, and that gets forgotten about a lot because, for obvious reasons, the original one gets all the love.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good point. And that one, under this umbrella, there's a few that we also wanted to mention for different reasons, going back to all the way back to 1971. Not one that I'm very familiar with, Brotherhood of Satan.
That movie is so weird. But it's like such a I think a common nightmare, right? Like nightmare. They get into this town and they cannot leave. You cannot leave. Something happens every time and you can't get out, and it's because of this satanic cult that's kind of running things in the town. And it's just the weirdest movie, and you don't expect it to work, and it shouldn't work, but it does. I mean, it is just weird and unsettling and creepy.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. But these next two I know, obviously Psycho, the classic. And it counts for being on the road because, she's taking the money and she's off and running.
Right.
So, and then they come chasing her.
Right.
And the whole thing.
And then she stops.
And,
it's a bad idea.
Right. So, so that might, that one might not come to everybody's mind when they think of road trip horror.
Right.
But when you break it down like that,
Yeah.
In a different way. And it's obviously a classic. For good reason. But another one, a fun one, they're definitely on the road, heading to Mexico from 1996, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes, and they, when they stop the car that things go wrong. And
it's a motorhome.
Yeah, it is. It's a big old motorhome.
With a grandpa driving,
That's
so
right.
you got to love that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, they go to the bar.
And the fact that he looks just like my dad in that movie only makes it that much creepier. I think he's actually wearing my dad's clothes and traveling hat.
So that one, those get mentioned as well when we talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But that is number one, not only in Hope's heart, but in the in the countdown of road trip horror. So I don't know, did we miss something? Let us know if we did or what you think of these choices. At Mad Wolf on Twitter, hit us up. Keep that conversation going. Golden Spiral Media, you can always find us there, goldenspiralmedia.com. You can even leave voice messages if you want to.
That's right. And, the other thing, actually, and I kicked around thinking about this one for this podcast. It didn't exactly work, although so much of it is on the road and in a car, but it's really a cat and mouse. Anyway, I wrote the Saturday Screamer for ScreenRelish.com this week, and I did I Saw the Devil, which I know you also love.
Yeah, love that.
Oh, my God. Such a great movie. Such a percussively violent, really weird, excellent
they're on the
film.
road a little bit for that, so I can see that. But yeah, that's a good one. And,
so hop over there and have a look. And we also want to just tell you next week we're going to have another guest host, Corey Metcalf from Golden Spiral Media. He's another one of our fellow podcasters.
Australian.
That's right. We're going to talk about the best Australian horror movies.
And I will promise not to try an Australian accent.
Thank you. Because we'll have a real one
laugh in my face.
So.
I'm not going to say shrimp on the Barbie one time.
Okay, just get out of your system now.
That's not a knife. They haven't heard that.
Actually, we talked about a couple Australian horror movies today.
Yeah,
maybe they'll make the list.
We've given the Aussie horror lots of love.
Yeah, we do love
on
Aussie
the
horror.
podcast here.
And actually, we Craig from Screen Relish, he has mentioned two that we haven't seen yet, and we need to. One's called Daddy's Little Girl, and then the other one, it's called Charlie's Farm. It's the same filmmaker, and you can check out Craig's 4-star review of the Aussie horror film Charlie's Farm on ScreenRelish.com right now.
Definitely. So, and that's also where we've got a conversation going about, well, not on Screen Relish, I'm sorry, but about on our Facebook about those horrific scenes, those scenes that are the most hard to watch. You can't watch. You turn away. So please let us know.
Yeah, definitely.
Your nominations.
Tweet those to us.
Yeah, that's coming in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So tweet those to us at madwolf.com. So lots coming up. Mm-hmm. Lots coming up, and we love it. So thanks until next week. I am George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends.